All right. Good morning, everybody.
Yeah.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be tuning in to our weekend hang. I have to change the name. Um, that's uh, that's in honor of our friends over in the UK that have a drum hang UK podcast. So we're being friends with them, and so now we're known as the weekend hang, and that's it. But we're talking drums, we're talking music, we're talking stuff. Let me pull up my comments window. It's good to see you all here. Thank you for tuning in. Steve, what's happening in LA?
Not a lot. But I wanted to ask you if you could transcribe everything you just played because it was really good.
No, no. Transcriptions. I gave up. I gave up transcriptions and transcribing myself after the Contemporary Drummer Plus One package back in 1987. I said I would never transcribe myself again. I didn't, not because of the workload. I mean, it was a lot of work, but I just didn't want to know. I didn't want to know really. I don't like to analyze what I do. It's like I like to analyze what other people do. That's what I grew up doing. But myself, I don't want to know. It makes it too. I have to relive a spontaneous moment. So no, not gonna happen. Not gonna happen.
All right.
Hey, I see a couple of people here. I just want to shout out to. I see Chris Castillo. I in the school. I see Bob Matheny, my one of my very first teachers here, Danny O'Keefe. Hey, today is one of my very first other teachers in St. Louis' birthday today. So everybody shout out to Joe Berger. Happy birthday. I'm not sure how old he is, but who cares? Happy birthday, Joe. We love you. And Joe Berger was, along with Bob Atheny, was very responsible for my early nurturing as a player and as a person, and love those guys. So shout out to both you lovely people, Bob Matheny and Joe Berger. Happy birthday, Joe. All right, cool.
And a cool thing, by the way, I wanted to mention in the online school is that when we were in St. Louis, what was that? That was almost 2 years ago now. Um, I sat you down with those two gentlemen and we did a 35-minute discussion, which is in the school. And it's you with both of your childhood teachers next to you.
Right.
And it's amazing. It's really cool.
Yeah, that was cool. When we played the concert here with my band in St. Louis in June of 2019, which was a fantastic event, which we are going to release we're going to release that show on a digital download, and that's coming up April 9th on Autumn Hill Records, which is where I'm broadcasting from, Autumn Hill Studios here in St. Louis. And yeah, that record will be out, like I said, on Steve Gadd's birthday. That's a coincidence. Coincidence wasn't planned, but it just kind of happened that way. April 9th. So yeah, it's a whole show live with kind of the original band that I had back in the late 90s that recorded Rhythm of the Soul, then into the Synergy record, and a couple other ones with Jay Oliver as the main composer, writer, and keyboard player, with Tom Kennedy, my brother from St. Louis here as well, that's now in New York on bass, and Buzz Featon came back to play with us, which was really a treat. And Gary Meek, who is my great friend, amazing cat, amazing musician, who's going to have a live show, by the way, for his 60th birthday coming up Tuesday. So go search out Gary Meek, and he is one of the baddest on the planet. Always has been and still continues to be. Great tenor sax player, soprano player, beautiful keyboard player. Guy plays a lot of music. So 60th birthday party for Gary. I'm gonna go. So cool. Yeah, that was fun though. Coming home and playing that show, and Joe and Bob were hanging afterwards in Jay's studio in St. Louis, where we a lot of history here. We recorded Contemporary Drummer Plus One there. We recorded a lot of Master Plan there. Jay and I go back to the mid to late '70s, with doing stuff together. So we had a ball.
So the room
And
that I interviewed you, Joe, and Bob, as I recall, that's where like your drums were in there when you recorded Master Plan. Is that right? Is that
that's
like
that, that's
very cool?
correct. Yeah, it was. I had forgotten how small the room was. It was a very small bedroom, probably no bigger than 10 by 10, I would think. And yeah, so we stuffed my kid in there, and wasn't much room for anything else. But yeah, as history has it, that's what we did.
Well, seeing those two guys next to you, the amount of pride beaming off of them talking about those days with you
Yeah,
was pretty amazing. So anyone who's in the school, you should go check that out. It's in there. I forgot what section of the school it's in, but you'll find it. It's in there.
yeah, yeah. And what's also in the school actually is the video performance of the same show I'm talking about with my band here in St. Louis. It's releasing digitally as a download, as an audio digital download. We have it up in the school as the whole entire show on video. So it's that right there is almost worth the price of admission, I would hope. So
And we sat right here and directed it that day.
yeah, that's right. Hey,
And we kept
Tobias,
saying
Tobias,
no.
Tobias. I'm sorry, I got to yell out to Tobias Israel. Great young player. It's coming up, going to Berkeley soon. My, my, pretty much my godson, if it were. But yeah, Toby's a great player. Yes, Sabian propeller thing. It's called a chopper, Toby. This is a chopper. I believe it's a 10-inch. Kind of looks about that size, and yeah, it creates some cool sound effects. I had gone through a period. Kind of started doing this in the acoustic band actually with Chick to quiet down the floor tom because it muffles the drum, still gives that texture, but I was taping like different size splashes on it, and then I would play the bells of those splashes, which would create some cool percussion effects. And with this chopper on here now, it vibrates a lot longer, so it really gets some cool effects. You can hit the drum and it kind of has it rings, and then I can of course hit it as well. So yeah, so I like to have things on my left side. Certainly not the first to do it. If you go look at somebody at some YouTube videos, search out Papa Joe Jones. He was playing a left-hand floor tom back in the 30s. So he's the first one I ever saw do it, and it probably started before that, but I just haven't been exposed to it. But certainly there's been a lot of great players that have put drums and tom-toms on the left. And by doing that, it kind of plays into the Gary Chester new breed aspect as well, because his thing was about territorial rights. Like this side, this side of the drum set, from center. This side was the right hand, this side was the left hand. So he had two hi-hats, and actually three hi-hats, so that if you want to play with your foot, you still got a closed one on the left. And then having things on your left side, when you're playing grooves. I didn't really necessarily follow completely the territorial rights aspect, but certainly Gary's new breed method is something that every drummer should go through if you're serious about really upping your independence and your concentration level. But for me, I just like to have tonalities at reach on either side, and especially when you're putting something low like this on this side, there's no way to really get that if it's all the way on the back over here. So, like I said, I have a lot of melodic choices and a lot of color choices with this tom-tom over here. It's really cool. Yeah, so little left hand floor tom type of vibe. Steve, don't we have something in the school on the left hand floor tom activities?
We have a whole lesson about that where you just go into creative ways to use that. So that's a fun lesson.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, cool. All right, let's hit some questions here.
How about this one? I got one for you from Richard Goldner. acquired the 13-inch maple signature. And can you talk a little bit about the dual snares? That's something people ask about a lot, actually, the dual snare.
Right. Well, the dual snare, you can probably see the strainers here. The dual snares were designed specifically, because they asked me to do a signature drum, and I didn't want to just slap my name on anything, so I kind of really put some time into thinking about what I didn't like, from a snare drum perspective. And most of the time, the thing that always bugged me and still bugs me a lot about snares today is just the one strainer aspect. Whether it can kind of either be choked, for tight precision, which is the idea of this back strainer here, which is kind of the normal one. But then you kind of lose the buzz of the snare, so it's choked, right? So my idea was to have the second one here that was looser, right? So it becomes a very versatile sounding snare setup. I can have it loose for effect. I can have it very dry and tight for effect. But most of the time I play them both on to have the precision of the tight one while I have the looseness of the second one surrounding that precision. And I have trouble playing anything else these days. Of course, they don't make this drum anymore. This particular one is a brass shell 30th anniversary drum that was made in 2015 for me, 2013 actually. 30th anniversary, right? So yeah. These drums, they all respond like this, and that has a lot to do with my snare sound over the last 25, 30 years, But it's not to say you can't get a good snare with strainers these days, but I'm kind of spoiled with this one. So yeah, that was really the concept. And also the 13, when it first came out, the question went off the screen, so I don't know if it was the original 5x13 with the gold lugs, which is not this one. This is one of the newer 30th anniversary models as well on this side, which can't really see all that well. Yeah, this one, I have one back here too, which is the 13, and I believe, yeah, it went back to 5. We went up to 5.5 for a little while. A couple of years ago when they were still making it, but on the wood drums. So that's a maple drum, and this is the brass. And there was also an aluminum shell made that's a beautiful sounding drum, and a couple of wood ones as well. But the original design that I wanted to have happen in the main drum was a 13x5 with 6 lugs. And this drum, a 14-inch by 5.5, only has 8 lugs. So it's kind of old school in that sense, where less is more. And I just find that even with newer drums, if I have an 8-lug side by side to a 10-lug, to me the drum is more responsive and less choked on the with the 8-lug thing. So that's just my apparency and my idea. But anyway, yeah. So that's that. I see a question here from Caesar. Hi-hats, please. Are they legacy? Yes, they are. They are definitely legacies. You can see the L there in the camera, but yeah, legacy hi-hats. These are very thin, very very thin top cymbal, and a little bit heavier bottom. But yeah, I have a couple different. I've got Evolution hi-hats too that are heavier, that I use sometimes for louder situations. But honestly, I like a thinner sounding hi-hat because then I can actually use the mic of the hi-hat if I desire, because they're not so loud. They have sort of a more natural sound. They're not real high-end cymbals. These are 14-inch as well. But they splash really nice, when I'm doing this kind of stuff. So you can hear even the bottom cymbals kind of thin, but I prefer those over heavier cymbals, mostly because it stays out of the snare drum microphone. And that can be a problem sometimes when you combine it with putting the mic, let's say, in front of the snare here, facing this way. Well, a 57 has a pattern like this, right, which is what I have, a Shure SM57 on the snare. So it's looking out this way, right, and it's going the high. I always put it under the hi-hat, so it's the least amount of leakage going up into the, cymbals into that mic. That's an important thing for setting up your microphones when you're talking about snare or hi-hat leaking into the snare mic. Anyway, so that's the legacy. The rest of the cymbals are mostly evolution. These are all evolution, crashes, splashes, effects cymbal. This is a Legacy 22 ride with a rivet, and then over here is an 18-inch crash underneath a 14-inch china. Those are both evolution. And of course the ever so famous ozone crash that now every cymbal company has copied. We were first. Okay, so anyway, yeah, great sounding cymbals. Yeah, I love the ozone. So does a lot of other people apparently. So it's a really nice cymbal. Yeah.
What's that
All
saying?
right.
It's the best form of flattery when they copy you. I don't know. I forgot this.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. I just saw. Man, these questions go by so quick. Sorry, everybody.
I know. Get dizzy from it. Thank you, everyone, for submitting your questions. Sorry we can't get to all of them, but hopefully it is helpful to you.
Yeah. Okay, so I see one from Sahil, who's in the school actually, and I haven't seen Sahil post. I'm not sure he's posted anything. Sorry if I missed you, but he's got a good question here about sharing my approach on singing melodies out loud or in your head and developing grooves or solos over them. I think you have it a little bit confused as to my approach, Sahil. I don't sing melodies and then play over them. The idea of singing is kind of separate from playing. It's a whole separate training that if you learn how to sing drums, both melodic and especially rhythmic precision, these things will help you when you get to the drum set subconsciously approach playing that way. And what I mean by melodies is I'm coming from a jazz history here, so I'm not talking about vocal pop melodies. I'm talking, although you could, but they're usually not as interesting. I'm talking about lines that great players play, like Freddie Hubbard's, Randy Brecker's, Blue Mitchell. These are all his, Randy's, obviously, killing still to this day. And then we have the late, great Michael Brecker. We have John Coltrane. We've got Joe Farrell. We've got all these great players. And those are just two instruments, we're not even talking about Chick, Herbie, piano players, guitar players that play incredible lines, Frank Gambale, Scott Henderson, all the great, guitar players that are out there. Wow. So, but it's these kind of melodies, right? That kind of thing. So conceptually, when I'm playing stuff, I try to think about those kind of things. I think about those kind of lines, melody. The other thing that is, about the singing and the soloing aspect is it's compositional. So, there's form involved. There's, sections involved. There's always a building of soloing. But when we're talking about the singing, it's that type of stuff against a pulse, which you can practice without being at the drum kit, and that's the idea. You can also get a lot of coordinated independence practice done by doing that, simply by tapping or clapping, tapping your foot even if you need to not make noise and just kind of do it softly. Be able to sing rhythmically what's going on. And those are just, what I was just singing now is just triplets and sixteenths, basically. You can get as advanced as you want without groupings and so on. So, but by having the independence to sing it and to have it internalized, that you can just keep the groove going and you can sing. A good one, a simple one, is just to take 16th notes, right? And you can apply this to the kit too. Just take 16th notes and sing accents, right? Starting with the first quarter note, the first beat of every 4/16ths, and then start moving it forward. So start displacing it by this, start the accent on the second 16th, the eighth note, the third 16th, and then the fourth 16th. So kind of like a da 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 da. Get that going, and then put it on the kit. You can kind of play phrases like that. You can concentrate on displacing stuff around the kit instead of just playing straight up and down accents. So these are kind of ways to make exercises where you're training, these kind of rhythmic precision displacement exercises along with independence. You make it musical, right? What's happening with what I just played? I'm not just playing notes. I'm not just playing strokes, right? I'm playing dynamics. I'm trying to compose. And every exercise I do, I try to make it musical as soon as possible. As soon as I get my hands around it, my brain around it, that I can physically do it independence-wise without glitching, then I put it into a melodic musical space and make it feel good. Attempt anyway. That's the whole idea, is to make it feel good within that pulse, so you're rhythmically precise when you play, and then you can get sloppy and get loose and have all kinds of swimming type of phrasings when you want. I'm not saying to play perfectly precision all the time, because sometimes that's not what is desired, right? But I'm just talking about being able to get that precision. See, I grew up in the period in New York City, getting early in my career, trying to get into the studios where the machines just started to hit as well. So I had some pretty stiff competition where precision was concerned. And if you didn't play precise, you didn't get the gig. The drum machine got the gig. So we had to learn how to play like that. So my metronomic click track practice was really hardcore, very specific. I spent a lot of hours trying to be precise, to the point of detriment. Actually, I got to a point where everything was just kind of cerebral, and there wasn't much of an organic feel going on. When I started studying with Freddie, all that changed, because I started replacing the cerebral counting, subdividing aspect into more of what I call time and feel by motion. Which is a whole other course in the school, and all this stuff would go into detail, but into school. But what I'm saying is that singing, to answer Sahil's question, that's how I approach it, and that's the benefits of singing. So practice your singing, and you don't disturb a lot of people with loud drums, so you can get a lot done that way. All right, cool. All right, what else we got? I need some water.
We've got a lot of great questions here. I just saw one. It moved very quickly.
Well, let's see. I'm going to scroll as well. Who else is in here? David Olson. Do the holes in the cymbal change the molecular structure? Well, that's what I was told. It actually strengthens the cymbal. So I've been told as well. We're talking about the ozone over here with all the holes in it. Yeah, that's what Sabian told me, so I'm going to go with that.
How about this?
Let's see.
Have you practiced yoga? I mean, you were talking about working out a little bit, but
no, I don't do yoga. I do practice meditation on occasion, not as much as my lovely wife would like me to, I think. But yoga, no, and it's probably something that I should consider. I tried it one time, and like everything else with me, it's just trying to make time to do everything that needs to be done in the working environment. So there's only a few other list of things that can squeeze into my world of time management. So, but I know a lot of people that do yoga, and of course it's seems to be very beneficial. So. Yeah, I do try to stretch. I do try to, move and work out as much as I can to sort of stay in some kind of decent physical condition to play this instrument comfortably. That's, to me, the most important thing. So, yeah. Here's a question. Sorry, Steve. Leo Neto asks how studying with Freddie Gruber changed my approach to brushes. Well, I'm not sure about that. I'd have to think about it. When we're talking about brushes, we're talking about there's a lot of different ways to play the brushes. There's a whole brush course in the school where I reference many players and many brush players that are great. And I don't consider myself a fantastic brush player, but I should practice them more. But I really, the one thing that I try to do is adapt, the single stroke roll thing, double strokes, and just kind of, rudimental aspects of being able to make these things move. And so I guess, in regards to the question, with a brush, you don't get so much bounce, well, if any, right? So you have to perpetuate things, with the hand. Here, let me use this cool Pro Logic pad here a little bit, which has a brush surface, right? So if I'm playing like this, see, if I'm doing that, this is akin to what I call controlled strokes with sticks. In other words, I'm not letting go back here at all. And you notice the front of the hand is not tight. I'm not doing this and that pulls the back of the hand off back here. That doesn't work for me so much because you're only using 20% of your hand. I try to use this approach, which kind of starts with a middle finger, thumb, fulcrum. But with this type of thing, it's all wrist, and I'm playing totally controlled from the back three fingers back here. So, if I'm doing singles, if I'm doing doubles, now it starts to get a little bit more front index finger, thumb priority a little bit. But as you can see, I'm still not letting go back here, right? So just by doing that, I'm still pulling in like I would a stick, right? If I do a double with a stick, I use this approach where there's a release and a pull. And this is all in the technique course on the school. Gets into a lot of different ways of making the sticks move with your wrist, control strokes, open strokes, finger control, and playing from the back of the hand, okay, the back three fingers. So with brushes, that's how I'm doing it. Now you notice I'm doing this, which is basically a very low molar stroke, okay, and that's again to make accents. Both hands. I'm doing this ever so slightly with the left, which is also molar, okay. So, our beloved mentor of drum life, Buddy Rich. I mean, he was always, after he came out of doing his singles with just the wrist, when he started opening it up and then got louder, he would always go into the molar motion to perpetuate the accents and play yet even faster. So playing fast is not the goal, right? It's just being able to express yourself and control what you want to do. So, and then with brushes, we have vertical strokes, we have horizontal sweeping strokes. There's a lot of different ways to play, things to get sounds from, that's singing, okay? So when I play this type of rhythm, I'm thinking straight ahead jazz. I'm thinking that type of thing. Although it doesn't have to be just jazz, right? Okay, so very controlled, all to hand, which is, to answer the question again, it's got, a lot to do with Freddie's approach and his teachings of middle finger and thumb fulcrum and more control from the back of the hand instead of the front. Okay, so that's that. Again, all that's in great detail in the school. So, what else we got, Steve?
All right. We've got. Oh, I saw Dennis Moody in there. Hello, Dennis. Dennis always he always chimes in. Very
Yep.
cool.
What's up, Dennis? Still snowing in L.A. He's he's out in the desert, and he keeps posting stuff about snowing in L.A. It's, dude, it's warmer in St. Louis. Come visit.
I might go
So,
see him today. Actually, I'm going to go out east and I might stop by and see Dennis. So we'll see.
oh, nice, nice,
Yeah.
nice. Right. Hey,
Here's
I
an
got.
interesting. Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
go ahead, Steve. Go ahead. I'll remember this one. Go ahead.
Uh,
Can a
I know
song
this
be
can
written?
happen. Does this happen a lot with your music, where the drums are written first, or you have an idea that ultimately influences the Weckl band tunes?
Well, I'll tell you. Of course, for most of my solo records, anything that's got my name on it as a composer generally starts with the drum groove. Okay, Tiempo de Festival, Double Up. Most of the records, when I had the percussion and the two bass drums, I was writing a lot of different grooves and things that sort of patterns and feels that gave the basis to the song. Now, if you're asking if the whole drum part could get written, no. Basically, it's maybe I'll have ideas of the A section and maybe a B section, because as soon as I start, composing a drum part, I'm sort of thinking as the harmony aspect and a lot of times the bass line and some of the times the melody. But then it's usually I throw it to, to somebody else, either a Jay Oliver, a Steve Weingart, whoever else I might write with, right? Gary Meek. And then we kind of do it together. And the best scenario, of course, is to do it sitting in the same room. That's great because you can just immediately bounce ideas off of one another. That can be done remotely, though, with Zoom and the like of online meetings and stuff. So you can definitely make that happen. But yeah, a lot of my music starts with the drums. Why not? We're the drummer, right? Okay. What else we got? Oh, Sergio asked, what exercises do you recommend with a metronome to develop time? Well, there's a couple ways I used to, practice with a metronome. And when I was developing, I used to have in my categories of things to practice, time practice, and in there I would have precision practice. So I used to have this, and they still make them today, the Dr. Beat metronome, but you can get a lot of phone app, metronomes. Polynome is one of them. My friend has made that app, Lucas, and so you can program subdivisions. And when I was really trying to work on the precision, that's what I do. But I would program the subdivisions to be dynamic and provide a feel. So instead of just programming dot 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 dot, 16th notes, I would practice it dot ding ding dot ding ding dot ding. So it would kind of program, it would the programming of the metronome, the volume of the subdivisions would provide a feel by itself. So and then it was about trying to practice with those kinds of subdivisions with what I'm playing to really, if I'm going to do like a linear type of groove, right? All those little subdivisions really focusing on playing in time, okay, with fills, grooves, patterns, everything, right? To be precise, not to the point of stiff, but to the point of, are you rushing, are you dragging, are the ghost notes speeding up, slowing down, what's happening, This is where the Gary Chester stuff really came into play for not only the independence, but for the concentration of listening to what you're doing, to actually, being able to hear each voice, what's going on with the snare while the hi-hat and bass drum keep going, same thing with all the other internal voices. So that becomes very important to study that way. And then what I used to also do is practice something called loose phrasing practice within metronomic time. And what I mean by that is I would kind of go the complete antithesis of style and approach. I'd get into like my Jack DeJohnette, Elvin Jones head, versus my Steve Gadd, Harvey Mason, Billy Cobham head. I'd be like this, and then so I'd practice if I had a click type of source going where, let's see if I can pull this off. If I just do this and I do this, can you hear that, Steve?
Yes.
Okay, so if that's the click, if I were to just play precision with that, I would be. Now, loose phrasing would be something like this. So I'm in that particular demonstration. I'm keeping, and that's difficult to do because it's like at 70 beats per minute. It's slow, right? So it really got to be internalizing where that pulse is, and then in this loose phrasings type of practice, I'm not playing anything specific where groups of fives, sevens, whatever. It's more about a sound atmospheric type of phrases, and I'm leaning towards corners. What I mean by that is accents either on the sixteenths or on the downbeats themselves, and trying to keep the quarter note going too with my foot. Also helps because you can do that by yourself, but with splashing the hi-hat, which is good practice to play something. That type of thing, but you can't really go there until you do it with a click and a metronome, so that you kind of learn how to do that. And I wouldn't, this is a very kind of specific soloing thing that I will do kind of by myself. Maybe behind a little bit of it behind a vamp that like a Mike Stern likes to play vamps for drum solos sometimes, at least starting. And sometimes I'll have a designated one of my solos in the night, because there's a lot of solos in the show, so I have to kind of pre-plan not what I'm going to play, but the structure of what I'm going to do, because I don't want to repeat myself if possible. So it becomes, okay, in this solo, in this tune, I'm going to do some of the loose phrasing stuff, but in my other solo I'm not going to do any of that. So I have kind of rules that I play with myself that kind of set up my approach to play many solos per night. But then the actual content of the solo, I try to be very spontaneous in that moment, so that's never pre-planned. But anyway, that's kind of the idea of the metronomic approach practice thing. Okay?
Hey, here's a quick one. Corey asking, not on social media, can you still be in the online school? So, of course you can. The school is...
I think that's my friend Corey. I think that's my friend Corey from up in the Seattle area. But yeah, go ahead, Steve. You were saying.
The school is on its own website, but Dave's group is on Facebook. So if you want to interact with Dave directly, he's in there every day. If you want to post a video and have him comment on it, that part is definitely on Facebook. Everything else is up on its own URL. So no, you do not have to be on social media.
Absolutely.
but it's cool if you are, because then you'll get a little direct input.
See a message from Paolo from Italy. Ciao, Paolo. Come stai? He says, how is life without touring? Different, very different. It's definitely, it's put us all into, okay, let's be creative off the road, and we're missing that aspect of our career and our life. Listeners too are missing that aspect for the most part. So that's why I try to provide a little bit of musical entertainment here every weekend, and play. And it keeps, like I said before, this is kind of my gig. I have to practice for this gig, to try to make sure my chops are maintained and that I can actually play something without making an idiot of myself, right? So that's a gig. And this is what I tell students, it's like, oh man, I'm bored, I'm depressed. It's like, what am I going to play? What am I going to do? It's like, man, create yourself a gig. Create something to do. Even if it's just, for your own uses of recording, posting things, maybe get your YouTube channel going, just create something to do, something to work for, so that, because it's hard to practice. I remember a friend of mine a long time ago always telling me, man, I can't practice unless I got a gig. I don't want to practice. And it, kind of makes sense in a way, although you got to look at the practicing aspect as, this is your schooling, this is your prep, your time to get your own comfort level happening and maintained, so that when the gigs do come back and we're all of a sudden getting called again to go on the road, it's like, oh, man, if you're not playing and practicing, I could tell you from experience, just going out and doing, a week's worth of gigs, 2 weeks, 3, a month, forget it. I mean, it's really hard on the body, and it's hard to get up to what I call show chops. So even though I'm practicing and playing and working quite a bit, in the studio here, I ain't nowhere near show chops. I can pull it off for 1 or 2 tunes, but after that, I'm like hurting, So it's also conditioning. It's physical conditioning to be ready, to do that. So, yeah, I mean, in one sense, of course, I miss touring, a lot. This is why we do what we do when we were practicing to hopefully get a gig to go play with people, to play for people, right? That's the whole give and take, and the beauty of music, for me, why I started doing it in the first place, was the self-expression, express and create and play with other people, and then get it so that the people that want to hear it and they're interested, they like it, they come out and support it, so it's an overall positive win for everybody. So I'm confident that we're going to get back to it. We keep trying to schedule tours, and they keep getting pushed back. So now we're trying to book the fall of this year. With Tom Kennedy and I we've been trying to tour a project that we did together for a year and a half now. Of course, we haven't been able to do it like everybody else. But Europe makes it difficult because of the different countries, and they all have their different regulations of COVID and what we're supposed to do. So we'll see. Eventually, though, it'll come back. But for now, we just have to, do what we can do here in the studio, online, and there's a lot of people out there now starting to put on performances, so go search them out and see what everybody's doing, and hopefully I can get into doing that too at some point if this continues. So we'll see what happens, but hopefully it comes back soon. All right, what else we got?
Here's a quick one I just wanted to address. Bakir says he's considering joining the school, but only for a month. Is it possible? Yes, it's possible. It automatically renews each month because it's an ongoing thing. So if you want to join just for 1 month before the 30 days, just go in and cancel. And that's it. Now, you might get addicted to it and not want to cancel, and that's your problem.
Nice.
Because it's really cool. Dave's put together something that I think is just absolutely fantastic. But I mean, for your budget and your time and whatever, if you want to just try it out for 30 days, you can do that. And it's very easy to cancel. You go in and you say cancel. That's it.
Right.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. Come on in for a month. Come on in for a year. Come on in. Hang out. Absolutely. Hey, I see a question from China. Young Kin from China. He he says you have great technique, like rudiment, speed, chops, but in songs you are so musical. Well, thank you very much, sir. How did you forget all the chop thing? Well, like what I teach in the school, and what I always try to profess, and what I try to also live by behind the kit and play, is that chops or your technique is a means to an end. The end is musical, expression. The more technical ability and understanding that you have in the drum world of how to make these things move. What are the options? How can I make these things move? There's a lot of different techniques, a lot of ways of doing this. And in my 53 years of playing at this point, I've had great teachers, I've practiced a lot, and I keep practicing. I keep trying to figure out, how to make it work, if I consider something not working. So, but there's the musical side that about supporting and in a supportive role, and I guess it kind of has to do with my studio side of my upbringing. That it also has to do with my love for different styles. So when you're in a pop setting, you're not going to play like you're going to play in a fusion setting. Pretty much, there's more leeway. There's more ability to play more interactive, more dialogue based with the people you're playing with, because it's coming from a jazz sensibility, an improvisational place, and one of creative interaction. Uh, so when it always will depend on the song for me. It's the type of music. It's it could come down to the rules and the desires of the musicians you're playing with. Some people don't like to have a lot of dialogue, even in a jazz situation. They prefer it not to be so bashing and loud. Others are just like play, more interaction. Chick always wanted interaction. He didn't like static grooves, and that was a that was a problem for me and John when we first got in the band, because we were coming out of a lot of this music was groove oriented. So it was like, okay, rhythm section keeps the groove, the soloist plays, and yeah, we interact a little bit, but man, if he speeds up a little bit, no, we got to keep it here. Boy, that was not the approach for the electric band and the acoustic band. We had to play with Chick to support without speeding up, slowing down, but to be there so the music worked. And that has nothing to do with chops. It's not about how fast you can play, how many single stroke rolls you can fit into the fill, and generally just a display of technique. It's not about that. At least I try to make it not about that. And because Buddy Rich was always. I remember back in the day. I mean, it's when magazine interviews started to come out in articles, or the first time, the first opportunity, anybody got to criticize, in print mostly, was like, he's too perfect. He just plays technique. It's like, man, you ain't listening. You got to be kidding me. It was the self-expression, because Buddy had the ability to play like nobody else. He could pull off his ideas, and his ideas were at a very high level, to play what he wanted to play. So, those are the kind of drummers I was attracted to by pushing those limits. So I had to, yes, develop technical ability, and I like to have the horsepower, if you will, to, if I'm going to step on it, I've got, the ability to push it up to where I can pull off the musical idea with the technique. But it's not technique based, So it's not about forgetting about the chops. It's about playing what's necessary for the song, and sometimes that's just very simple groove stuff, depending on what it is, and don't forget about contrast too, because if you're playing, I remember B.B. King was the one. Yeah, so you can't just go around yelling at somebody all the time, which correlates to if you're just playing loud and fast all the time. There's no contrast. There's no difference between the soft and the loud, the slow and the fast, and guys like Buddy, guys like Steve, and there's many more, that had that understanding of the emotional, aspect of playing the music, and they had that total understanding of contrast. So, that's where I'm coming with it from. Yeah. I see. I'm just going to jump in here, Steve. Guillermo Trejo. I'm not sure how to pronounce that there, Guillermo. But non-drumming question: which app are you using for switching the cameras? I'm not using an app. It's a piece of equipment. It is a Roland V1 HD switcher that allows 4 HDMI inputs, and I am running the switching from a USB output of the switcher to an iPad. It has an iPad app. Unfortunately, not Bluetooth, but so I can't walk around with it like into the control room or anything. But it's nice to have it here next to me that the teachable thing is covering that up, so I can't use that camera angle. Maybe this one. Yeah, you can kind of see the iPad down here is what I'm using to switch. So so yeah, there's a lot of them on the market these days. ATM makes one that's a lot cheaper than the Roland, but it's kind of necessary if you have multiple camera angles and you want to get some different shots going to have a switcher. So no app per se. I mean, it's an app in the iPad, but it's Roland's own app, right? All right, what else you got, Steve?
Well, you were talking about Chick Corea for a minute, so next week there's a special thing going on with you and the guys from the electric band. Maybe we should mention that.
That's right. Yeah, there's been a lot of folks, lovingly, giving Chick a tribute, and they've all been terrific, and I've been involved in some of them. But as a band, as the electric band, we've never all really been in the same, chatting area of these things so far. So we kind of collectively decided to do our own tribute with just Frank, Eric, John, and myself, and Steve is going to help us in the background, direct it for us, and that is going to happen next Saturday, I believe, the 20th. Is that correct, Steve? Is that where we're going for?
Yes, that'll be on the 20th. So next Saturday at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern time, with the full band, sharing pictures and talking about Chick and talking about all your experiences.
Yeah, we had lots of great moments. So yeah, we're just gonna do it with just us, and we'll be taking questions as well. So it'll be fun. Yeah. All right. What else we got here? Oh, here's an interesting one. Karsten Bursock asked, you were just talking about mic leakage. What are your thoughts on budget recording miking drums in times of lockdown and limited access to studios? Stereo mics for drums, or it's actually Glenn John's style, etc. Yeah, it's I'm very fortunate. Of course, over the years, I've built up my microphone and mic preamp and studio situation because it was part of my world. I've been mixing and recording and producing my own records since the late '80s, and I studied that. I studied, tried to learn and get as good as I could. I still don't really consider myself a top-notch engineer because there's a lot of the technical aspects that I'm still not, that I don't know very well. But I have ears and I know how I want to make it sound. So and I've experimented a lot, but I've read a lot, and I've hung around with guys like Dennis Moody. I've hung around with guys like Bernie Kirsch. I've hung around with many great engineers in New York when I was coming up through the studios. I was always watching what they were doing and learning. But yeah, as with anything, when you're talking about miking and you're talking about the sound of the drums, where does it start? Well, it starts here. It starts with the touch of the player. That's first. Second, it starts with the drum set, how it's tuned. What is your idea, your vision of the sound that you want? Are you thinking in a sense of one instrument, as far as in relation to microphones? And this is important too, because if you put your crash cymbals way up here, and the drums are here, and you're only using overhead mics, well, you're in trouble. You're not only going to hear the cymbals. So you got to then, if that's you really want those cymbals way up there, then you got to put the mics behind you so that they're coming down, looking at more the drums than the cymbals. That's one way to do it if you're only using overheads and a kick drum mic, for example, which when we used to, Jay and I, we used to do demos, that's what we did. Instead of setting up a bunch of mics, we just used two overheads pointed more at the drums and a kick mic, and that, that sufficed. In some instances, you got a bigger sound that way, right? If you really, position the microphones, and you got to make sure your snare is in the center of those two mics, and the kick drum too, for the most part. Kind of hard to get both of them in the center, but you try to do that. Equal distance from the snare with the overheads. And then what Carson was talking about, the Glyn Johns approach, was the old method. Engineer by the same name recorded John Bonham that way. He recorded a lot of different players that way, where it was three microphones basically, a kick drum mic, one overhead, and then one over your shoulder back here that was equal distant to the snare. And believe it or not, it works. It's you wouldn't think it would, but I was recording my Buddy Rich kit that I had like that a few days ago, and it sounds amazing. It sounds really good. The bottom line is you can make anything work if you need to, and then you can fine tune things in post production if you have to. One of the greatest engineers of our time is by the name of Al Schmidt, and I worked a lot with him in L.A. I did the Natalie Cole record, a few tunes on that. He recorded that, but he's recorded everybody. Sinatra, it goes down the line. He's been around forever, and mostly worked at Capitol Records in L.A., but all over the place. But his thing is, never touch an EQ knob unless you have to. Mic placement and mic choice is, of course he had access to, some incredible microphones. But obviously, it goes back to the music for me of what kind of drum sound I envision in the song. If I want a real tight pop and drum sound, I'm not going to use big, large diaphragm condensers for the overheads, because it's going to be just too much room sound. It's going to be too much wash. So I I always prefer a tighter pattern pencil mic for overheads in those kind of situations. And then when it comes to the close miking, I've used a 57 on the snare forever, and it's a $99 microphone, brand new. So we used to get away with, back in the day when we couldn't afford much, we had a 57 on the snare drum, and at times we would use a 58, which has basically the same mic, a little bit of a different pattern with the capsule on it, with the screen, but we put that on the bass drum. It worked, and then we had just two overheads for a while. But you could think about things like splitting tom-toms with a microphone if you have a mic that has a wide pattern. And then, of course, placement has to do with everything. So it's just a matter of what you can afford. Like I said, you can mic up the whole kit with SM57s, and it sounds great. Overheads is a little bit of a push, but we used to do it. We used to before we could afford mics. We used to do the 57s. Excuse me. So, just try to get the best mics you can. A lot of it though has to do with the mic preamps. If you get a good mic and you plug it into a preamplifier that is cheap, you're only going to get as good of a sound with that you can get from both things combined. I'm still not sure which is more important to have. I'm going to say the mic, because the microphone, versus a preamp, as far as where you want to spend your money. But I'll tell you, I use mostly Shure microphones, except occasionally I'll use some really high-end overheads that Shure really doesn't make. But most of the time I use their KSM 44s, which are a huge diaphragm microphone. Sometimes I use the KSM 141s. And then on the drums, like I said, 57, you can use 57s and 58s on the toms. These little guys that I've had on the tom-toms for years are the old original SM98s. They're not even the betas, they're the SMs from the 90s. And they're a condenser microphone, and I just prefer the way they sound pretty much over anything I've tried, unless you put a big, large condenser mic over it, like a U67 or something. That's really expensive, and they sound good. But again, it depends on the music. It depends on what you're wanting clarity wise. But just experiment. Go read. There's a lot of information out there. I do a recording and mixing course in the school. So there's a lot to learn, and it's fun. It's free. It's just hard drive space. I mean, you can erase it if you don't like it, right? Yeah.
Right. There's a follow up for you on the screen there from
Okay.
Andrea.
Um, yeah, Andrea, hey man, how you doing? Andrea Chicato, he's a great drummer. He was in the school for a while. I don't know if he's still there, but um, in a studio session, do you prefer a completely flat drum sound? No, I never prefer a flat drum sound unless I have, millions of dollars of microphones and preamps that sound great. Generally speaking, I said, there's a lot of things involved in the sound of what's going on, and I said it starts with the player, then the drums. What I didn't add in there is the room. The room has a lot to do with the sound you're going to get, and what it forces you to do in post production. But this is in Autumn Hill Studios, which my room when I design it this year will be similar, in a sense of it's got a lot of wood, a lot of reflective surfaces that really are done correctly. There's no parallel surfaces, so there's it has a brighter characteristic. If you're in a room, a dead room with carpeting and sound absorption on the walls, it's going to be a really tight sound with no reflections, but you're not going to get any ambient space. So, I'm doing a trick here actually, that I've got a microphone out in the big room that's this huge open space that's really reverberant, and I just put the mic there and use it, for extra sound that I can use as a reverb unit. So here, check this out. I'll just turn it up here and play. You can hear what this room mic does. So that's really cool, and it's like, we don't all have that luxury of having a big open room that you can leave the door open, let the drum sound go out there, and record it with just a mono. I'm using an SM81 condenser mic, and you can hear it sounds like a room plug-in that's an actual room. But it could give you an idea that if you are in a space, to put mics around the room to try to get a little bit of space on the drums, So it's, again, it all comes down to budget. Yeah, like that. So, I didn't answer the question actually, but speaking, Andrea, I generally, I usually put a little bit of EQ, either going in from the mic pre's when I have my Day Kings that have EQ on them, especially for kick and snare and overheads. Not a lot. I don't use a lot of EQ, just a little bit of brightness on the snare, taking out some of the mid-range, and it's kind of whatever it needs, But yeah, I like to be inspired when I play, so I don't want the drums sounding, especially if they're mixed bad, from a perspective of your balance. They have to be balanced like you're playing. So. It's that's one advantage to being your own engineer. You can kind of dial all that in yourself. So, but make sure you're not doing something that is not natural. Like having the bass drum way too soft and then you're overplaying it, or having it too loud and you're underplaying it. So you got to try to mix it as you're physically playing it. Right. Okay, Chrissy Paulin. What you asking, girl? Let's see. What's your favorite small setup for straight groove R&B soul set? What's essential?
Maybe we should tell everyone, remind them who Chrissy is. She sang on your Higher Ground tune.
That is correct.
Who saw that? And I think I just saw the other day she has a single that she just put out, so everybody should check her out. But she's a good friend of the family.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, the Drum Fantasy Camp. Yeah, she's been involved with us for a long time. So,
Yeah.
and yeah, she's fantastic. Go check her out. Well, it's an interesting question because I mean, you can, in a small setup for straight groove R&B soul, I mean, you can get by with a hi hat, a snare drum, and a bass drum, literally. I mean, maybe one crash, but tom toms are you know extra. If I was going to do anything, I might have one floor tom, and then certainly no more than a four-piece kit, which is, if you go back to old James Brown videos, you're going to see Clyde using a four-piece jazz kit, basically, even playing traditional grip with a slanted snare and the whole thing. So yeah, you don't need a whole lot, so yeah, you can get by with very little to play those kind of gigs. And in fact, it's interesting to practice with a small setup. It kind of gets you into a different frame of mind to be creative with less, and which is why a lot of the times I do set up, and I pretty much always have a jazz kit set up so that I can go and do that too. Along with the fusion setup where I have more color going on and more tonality, more melody available to me. But that would be the answer to the question, Christy. So there you go. Less is more. It can be. Depends on the songs and the music. Right. All right. I think are we getting down to it here? We got.
I did see.
Oh, here's a fun question. Kevin Richard Hote, Hot. I'm not sure. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing. Crossovers. I saw you playing them a few moments ago. What is your philosophy and approach to them? Do you think they are a valid performance technique or mainly for show? Well, crossovers. He's talking about this kind of thing where where it's crossing over the drum set and playing this way. I mean, Buddy used to do it for show all the time and do things where he would do that kind of thing. And I will admit I'm kind of guilty of it as well, from that perspective. But there are times when the melody that I want to play dictates what I have to do in the phrase that I'm playing. So so for instance, in a fill or in a solo thing, if I want to play this, there's no way I'm going to play that phrase, unless I cross. So that would be kind of the one that I would use the most going up this way. So yeah, it's totally valid. Not only for show. I mean, if I'm playing here and I'm trying to go and do this, that's a little bit of a stretch. That's more for show than anything else. But this one is definitely something that I've used for a long time. And I remember learning this when I was a kid. I mean, I was and I'm not sure where it came from, but the first one I ever learned was going this way. Now, guys like Buddy used to go under this way. Yeah, it's all about melodic placement for me most of the time. Like I said, that stuff was very lamely demonstrated of some crossover things. But the first one I did was very valid as far as a melody and a placement thing that is a crossover. So there you go with the crossovers. Okay, Boy, I could go on and just do this all day. It's fun.
I know it is fun, but everybody should stick around because you are going to play a really cool tune, one of my favorites that you do
I'm gonna play.
coming up.
Yeah, for it's if any of your Oz Noy fans, I'm gonna pull one from that repertoire, and it's actually available for sale on my website as a play along.
Yeah.
And it's me and Oz and Will Lee, great bass player Will Lee, that I've had the pleasure of playing many times with. Um, uh, let's
How about
see.
this? Oh yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I don't know. I don't know that you like to be too specific about this, but are there any new drummers you've seen that make your head shake?
Shake positively or negatively?
Probably. Let's say positive.
Let's say positive, of course. Yeah,
Absolutely.
we need to stay in the positive realm.
Yeah.
There's, it's just about everybody I see. I mean, there's like this almost an oversaturation on Instagram, and of everybody just playing, and doing stuff. And there's some really great players. I mean, really great players that I've seen, and I'm going to be really lame right now and not be able to name any of them because there's so many. There's just some cats that I've seen lately that are really playing great. Vic Firth just posted somebody yesterday, and I can't remember who it was, but I love the way this guy plays. Great feel, time, chops when they need it. There's a lot of great young players out there, and it's that's why I keep saying, get your YouTube channel together, put it out there. That's what you do now. That's the time. That's the time to do this. So yeah. Every time I see an old video of myself with the electric band or whatever it is, it's like, oh, youth. Yeah, it's good. Youth. So yeah, there's young guys are. I'm so happy to see so many young players that have the passion, that have the desire to want to play. So that's what it's all about. So bravo, keep pushing. Very good. Sorry I can't name any in particular. I'll get that together. Go make notes for the next time.
Yeah.
JD Beck, I think that's the guy that I just saw that name fly across the screen. I think that's the guy that I saw yesterday. That rings a bell. So yeah, JD Beck killed me. Loved it. Great player. But there's so many. Like I said, there's many more. Yeah, now all the names are going to come. This will be an education for me. I'll go look at these comments later, guys, and I'll go check them all out because a lot of these names I don't know. So,
Here's one for you. Have you ever had stage fright? Kind of wondered that myself. If you've ever encountered that for any reason.
not fright in particular. Yeah, I've been anxious sometimes, or in and I definitely can tell you why. Anytime that my palms start sweating and I start worrying about stuff, it's because I'm not confident about something that I'm about to do, and it's either in a little bit. I'll be playing in a situation where the musical. Sorry, I just got distracted by a question there. Oh, okay, now I remember. I'll be playing something in a musical situation where maybe I'm not so comfortable with, or more so, it's music that is really hard and that I don't know that well. I remember going to Turkey one time to play all this music. That was kind of where I met Osam Oz Izeldin, great piano player. We were playing with Orhan Osman, great bouzouki player over there, and a lot of this music, man, was way out of my wheelhouse, and it was coming from that the Turkish. Cyprus and like all these places that wrote a lot of odd times, and it wasn't Western odd times. It was very different, and I was not. I had to really study and practice for that gig, and I wasn't comfortable because, like I said, it was out of my wheelhouse. So it wasn't nervous or stage fright, but it was definitely that that anxiousness of like, okay, I gotta really concentrate with this, because it's not something that I'm used to doing. Um, so that's it. No stage fright. Yeah, just try to prepare. That's what alleviates the stage fright for me, or for alleviates any kind of nervous anticipation. Um, yeah. All right. So, Marco's asking me, can you tell us the sticking of the clave pattern that you play between cowbell, snare, and tom tom? I know what you're talking about, Marco. I get this question a lot, and dudes, I got no idea what this sticking is, because it's. I'm going to let you all figure it out, but it's a thing that I did in the solo, the opening solo, where I continue the phrase with the cowbell, and I just have never. Well, I remember trying to slow it down once and figure it out, but like I said, I don't like that self-analyzation thing, so I'll let you guys figure it out. But anyway, this is the pattern that it is. Okay, so it's a 2/3. And then what Marco's talking about is this. It's almost impossible to do slow. That's the problem. It's because a lot of it is just flowing in and out, and the concentration is on the clave and the time. So the strokes are kind of floating in and out of whatever they are. Good luck. You guys got it. Anybody that submits it, go for it. You can tell me what it is. Yeah, so that's what that. Let's see. Well, I mean, we could, like I said, we could keep going on here and on and on and on. Lloyd is in the school. He's asking about Swiss triplets and how I phrase them. I did a whole thing in the school on the Swiss triplet things. But I think you're talking about, Lloyd, the thing when I do it on the cymbal. Basically a Swiss triplet, and if I put it on the cymbal and I come back to the snare, that's how I use it. So you can see I put an extra stroke in there to make it groups of 4s against the 3s sometimes, which takes a little bit of left-hand technique to pull that one off. But yeah, that's the phrase. But again, like I said, I try to put it into a musical thing right away. Just get it musical instead of it being an exercise. So that's that. All right. Well, I think it's time to end with a little song here. All right, I just saw somebody. Yeah. Somebody go by. I'm not. Yeah, somebody said, the snarky puppy drummer. I think you're talking about Larnell. Larnell is killing. He's really a great player. Sweet guy too. Sput. That's right. Sput Searite. That's Chrissy just threw that up there too.
Cover that chair.
Yeah. Sput. That's right. Sput and Larnell. Cool. Well, yeah, guys. I'm just looking here. So many people. It's really nice. Thanks for coming out and hanging out with us. It's always a pleasure to see so many people. I love the interaction, and yeah, I just want to thank you for the support. Thank you for coming out and hanging and asking some questions. And we will see you. I guess we're going to try. We're going to do next week, Steve, because it's going to be a Sunday next week because of our chick thing, right? Or
That's
what's
right. The
the
chick thing will be at 9 a.m.
right?
next Saturday, so 9 a.m. Pacific, and then yeah, we have to decide when to do this. We could do it on Sunday, which we've
Okay,
done
yeah,
before.
we'll probably do it on Sunday next week because
Yeah,
yeah, it'll give me more time
we'll
to
post
get my
that.
act together. Cool.
Yep.
So I see somebody asking about traditional grip. Gabe is asking, and traditional grip, man, is I'll tell you that it's a labor of love. I grew up playing this way. It's because of all my favorite players when I was growing up played this way, and that's how I learned. So it honestly speaking, you know, again, in the school, I go into a heavy duty course about, how I approach this grip. And there's a lot that goes into it. It's not about just turning the stick over and playing traditional, right? It's because it's a heights and angles thing, in my opinion, with this stick. All right, it works much better if the snare drum is angled in a way that works with the stick this way. If I'm going to angle this thing for a match grip position, which would be more here, but if I turn this over now, I'm way out of position, and I have to lean down towards into the drum. So that's kind of the biggest issue about playing, both traditional and matched is that snare drum positioning wise, it just doesn't work, and it's hard to play it. So my whole kit is set up based on the traditional angle here, so that I can stay natural with my body. And then after that, it's just understanding how to control the stick with different aspects of the hand. And it's a little bit too much to get into now with the whole thing, but yeah, it's about manipulation and bounce. So just a quick thing. It's that's not going to work. Okay. Okay. So there's the wrist, and the thumb is really, it's on top of the stick here. So anytime it opens up, I can open up full like that. A la Tony Williams. I've seen Buddy do that. I've seen a lot of guys do that. So it played that way. So there's thumb involved, but I'm also it's a wrist stroke. I'm turning my wrist. So turning this way, but it's the control points that are important. This is one of them. Thumb over the finger, and then this is the other. Okay, and that one is important for a lot of different stuff, especially stopping the stroke. So I got that, and then I use molar technique. But the key here is that most of the time there's bounce involved. Now sometimes, of course, I'm going to hold on to the stick in a controlled situation and not let go. But a lot of the times I'm going to open up this way, and then I'm going to play molar, and then I'm going to play fingers, and then I'm going to do, there's a lot of different ways to manipulate. So again, I go through all of that in the school, and so come on in and check it out. We hope to see you there. All right?
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So, Steve, anything else to add before I attempt this song here?
Nope. If you're ready to attempt it.
Okay. Yeah. It's This one is difficult. The solo section is really tricky. It's a song that Oz wrote called "Steroids," and it's difficult. So I'm just making excuses in case I screw up. So, but because there's a structure of the song and the hits and the spatial thing, and then trying to play in between something that makes sense, right? So anyway, once again, this is Will D on bass, great Will D, and Oz Noy, Steroids. Once again, thank you all for coming out. Be safe, be healthy. And be creative. Make some music, create the job for yourself, and go have some fun. All right, and hopefully we get through this soon, and we get back to touring. But until then, stay positive and have fun making music. All right. Thank you very much. This is Steroids.
All right.
Okay, should be ready to go. There we go.
Hey, Dave. Just
Hey,
for, just for the record, the time signature of that tune is.
4/4,
There you go.
all the way through. Yeah, all the way
Yep.
through. Oz is a little bit nuts. You know, he writes all these crazy. In that particular section, he decided that the bridge would go into this hyper speed thing. That it was interesting putting it together for the play along because I had to create the tempos and the clicks and the slow down at the end and all that type of stuff. So going back to the slower tempo and the groove from the double time section, it took a little bit of practicing to remember and really listening to get because I'm listening to a version with a click. You guys aren't hearing the click, but the click is definitely helping me, of course, especially for the solo spaces. But yeah, steroids. It's like I said, available for sale up there on my website for all the instruments, guitar, bass, and drums. Download. So go check that out. And those of you thinking about coming into the school, come on in. Love to have you. And again, we'll see you next week. Try to tune in for our Chick Corea tribute with the electric band on the 20th. And then the 21st, we'll be back with another weekend hang. All right?
Good.
Be well, everyone. Steve,
All right.
thanks. We'll see ya.
You.
So you have to look at my back. Okay. Terrific. See you guys. Thank you very much. Be well.
Thanks a lot.
Ciao.